Ladies and gentlemen, rock fans from right across the globe, we're going to say globe rather than world because we are, welcome to another Musical People and Journeys rock album review show. But we're not reviewing an album, we are talking to a very special guest, and they keep coming thick and fast because once again I seem to be having a wonderful time speaking to my brothers from another mothers from the valleys in Wales. Welcome to Casey Maunder.
Hey
hello Casey,
guys,
how are you
doing? I'm all good, yeah, lovely sunny day, love the summer, so everything's cool down here in Wales, yeah.
Well, it's not good. It's a balmy heat wave here in the UK at the minute, including Wales, but it normally just rains, but there we go.
Yeah, it did rain this morning, but apart from that, we've been okay from about 12 onwards.
So, first thing, did I pronounce your surname correctly? Is it Maunder? Is that how you pronounce it?
Maunder, that's the one, Casey Maunder, yeah.
Now, where does the word Maunder come from? Where does that? How do you know where that originates from? I've never heard it as Wales.
Well, no, I don't think it is Wales. I think that from the stories my dad tells it's come from Hull, I think, maybe. But I think there are Maunders. There are Maunders down in Cornwall as well. And I did look it up before, but there were a few different meanings to it, kind of thing. But I think it's an English name, believe it or not.
So, Casey, we've not actually reviewed your album at all. You kind of reached out and gone, like, could you kind of give us some coverage? But what? So if you bumped into me in a pub, and from our hometown in Neath, and I go, all right, Casey, tell me about your music then. What sort of rock music? You say you're a rock star, but what sort of rock music do you play? How would you describe your music, Casey?
I'd say that there's always big guitars. It's always guitar based. There's always a melody, always a chorus. I try not for there to be any fillers on the album at all. I'm hoping that kind of every chorus on the album you'll go away and they'll be stuck in your head and you'll be singing them back to yourself. So yeah, always high energy, always big guitars, always kind of big melodies, harmonies, and that's come from various different kind of influences that I've got. But I do also try to be a little bit eclectic. I don't try to write in any particular direction, but always a melody, always a chorus. I think that's how I kind of tag myself a little bit then.
But so are you a solo artist, or do you have a band? So how does it work?
Right. So in the studio, I mostly work just myself and a producer. A guy called James Weaver, who's based in Swansea with me, and he's phenomenal. I always say that he takes what's in my head and kind of soundscapes it and is able to mould it into kind of workable songs. So I record all the guitars myself, all the vocals myself. If there's piano, keyboards to put on, I'll do those. Any mandolin, any little bits like that. Then as far as the bass is concerned, I'll do some, my producer will do some. And where I'll get to now is when I play live, I've got a full live band. So it's myself on vocals and guitar. I've got another guitar player, a bass player and a drummer. And we do it all live. We don't use any tracks. We don't use anything like that. So it's a full 4-piece band. When we play live, I bill it as the Casey Maunder Band. But on record or on streaming avenues or whatever you want to call it, then it is just Casey Maunder because it's me. I'm very... I don't know, I didn't want to take anyone else's opinion on board this time around, kind of thing. I'd been in bands for years, and I wanted to branch out alone, and I wanted to see, what will come out if I do this. My producer still has a say in the studio, but mostly, live it's the Casey Maunder Band, studio is just Casey Maunder.
So, when did you decide now to go solo then? Is this a recent thing then? And what was your
it was I've always been in bands, always been we toured up into the country, we tried our best, etc., and then you get into a bit of a lull and then you get back again and you get into a lull. And I suppose, as with lots of people in the country really, it was lockdown, and we were in lockdown, and it was, I suppose you start to kind of have a little bit of existential dread then, or you question your own mortality a little bit when there are so many people dying in the country, etc. And I thought, first of all, this is going to give me something to do and something to focus on. And also, with all the bands that I'd been in the past, they were all kind of pre-streaming services. So they were on CD or cassette or vinyl or whatever it was. And they disappear. And even myself, with house moves and different things, I lost loads of the stuff that I'd done before. So I thought, first of all, it's going to give me something to do in lockdown, and secondly, I can leave something behind. You know, I talk about myself as a songwriter, a guitarist, a singer, etc. And this will be something when I'm long gone. Hopefully there'll be some kind of format of something I've created out there. So yeah, that was the story really. Lockdown kind of twofold. It something to do, something to keep me occupied, but also it was something to leave behind, something to put my name on, and something that people would be able to listen to in years to come.
Did you find that decision to go solo then to be a daunting prospect or an exciting one?
I found it exciting, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. I love playing in a band, and the boys that play in the Casey Maunder band with me are some of my best friends, and they they do it. You know, I always say it's my name on the poster. So these boys are, you know, to do it anyway, just because they love the music and to have no input into it. So I do love playing in the band, but I was excited about seeing what I could produce and what I could write without compromising. I got to a stage in my life where I wanted to take control of it and take direction of it and go, right, let's see, because as I say, I never write in a particular direction. I don't sit down and go, I'm going to write something that sounds like this or something that sounds like that. Just literally just me. I sit down with the guitar and I see what comes out. Or I'll sit down with a pen and paper to write lyrics and I'll just see what comes out. So I was excited. Yeah, I was really excited to do it. And I was pleased, you know, with how things have turned out.
So you produced an EP in effect, really, haven't you? Is that right? Is it an EP you produced?
No, I the first two albums came out. First album was just after lockdown. That was Until Your Heart Stops Beating. So that was 10 tracks. Then the second album, Get Out and Push, came out last year.
That's right.
And that's a 10-track album as well. I'm working on the third album at the moment, which will be called Smash Down Jericho. And The Paint is my current single. That's the first single off the third album.
That's amazing. I'm really excited to listen to it, actually. So, where did it all start for you, though, then, Casey? I mean, you know, because we all know, and I'm from the same home kind of town and stuff as you are, really. And even back in my day, I used to follow a band called Spearhead, and the rock scene back then, and this was back in the 80s, was pretty vibrant. You know, there were so many different pubs and stuff in our local area. It was ridiculous. I think we had more pubs in Neath than there was per square mile than in Swansea, and it was vibrant. The rock scene was absolutely vibrant. What's it like, for somebody like you that's trying to, you know, start the way that you rock music? Because we were interviewing a band and they were kind of from Swansea, and they were finding there's a young kind of band, and they're finding that it's very difficult to kind of get the right sort of demographic for their music in Swansea, so they've had to kind of go more kind of out into England and London and stuff to kind of get to play to their sort of audience. Is your sort of audience local to you, or are you finding you're going to have to kind of go out there and spread it around the country?
Well, Swansea's always had a big rock scene, as you say, and there, you know, my beginnings were in a pub called the Coach House in Swansea, which was a rock bar, and it was such a cool place, you know. And I started going there when I was 14, 15, and sneaking in the back, and it was you'd have your kind of goths, kind of Sisters of Mercy fans in one room, then you'd have all your glam kind of Poison, Motley Crue fans in another, then you had your thrashers out the back, you had your dope smokers then, and it was such an amazing eclectic mix of people, and it's one of those places where you made friends for life. There are people now, and people say, how do you know him? And I'm like, from the coach house, from the pub. And they go, what do you mean? We all go to pubs, we don't mean. But it was a different thing. So that's where I started, really, was there. With the stuff that I do now, I'm very lucky that, we do branch out and we do travel, but within South Wales at the moment, there are venues that are bringing some kind of reasonably big international acts to play clubs. I'll give a shout out to it now. There's a venue called the Patriot in Crumlin, and we've played there a few times with the band. And it's another one of those surreal experiences where I've opened up for White Lion there, and I've opened up for Love Hate, who are another band that I love, a New Jersey band called Trickster. We've also got then the Party Pavilion in Swansea. We've got the Memo in Newport. So there are spread across South Wales. You've got the Globe in Cardiff. Spread across South Wales, there are some really good kind of rock music venues that are managing to attract some reasonably big bands that were very big back in the day. I mean, I talk about, I opened up for White Lion for Mike Tramp. I saw Mike Tramp opening for Motley Crue in the Birmingham NEC, right? And then I'm sound checking with him and sharing a Guinness with him and having a chat on a stool by the bar. And it's almost worth doing it just for those moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
when I say to my band that play with me live, and I say to them, thanks so much for doing it, boys, because I know it's my name, and you're not getting a lot of recognition. And they're like, oh my God, we're living the dream as well. Because like I say, we're sitting in the dressing room with Jizzy Pearl from Love Hate. And then the following month, we're with Mike Tramp from White Lion. We're with Steve Brown and PJ Farley from Trickster. And it's fantastic. So there is still a kind of vibrant rock scene in Swansea, and it's being in South Wales, and it's being championed by certain venues, I would say, and certain promoters. There's a promotions agency. It was called Big Day Productions, and now they're called Cross Borders Music Group, and they're bringing Chris Holmes from Wasp, they're bringing Taiketo, they're bringing Hardline, which is another act that I open for. So South Wales is managing to attract some fairly big rock acts at the moment. But we do have them festivals, etc., next year booked up where we'll come across the bridge and we'll do a little bit more there.
So you're talking about a lot of influences there. So let's just dial it back a little bit then, because when you were kind of in your early teens, what made you, and was it back then that you were going, hey, Dad, Mum, I'm going to be a bloody rock star, see, because that's what I want to do. How old were you when you kind of tipped that, into that sort of thought that that's what I want to be, or was it when you're older? And what was your real influences in terms of that rock scene then?
Right, I'll tell you a story now.
Oh, we love a good story.
Because it was a bit of an epiphany. I was very lucky that my dad was quite a well-known musician within Swansea, etc. He was in bands, and he played with Bonnie Tyler, and he played with Jeff Beck and Nina Simone and these kind of people. So when I was growing up, we had myself and my brother in the house, and we grew up in a modest terraced house in Swansea. However, we had guitars, keyboards, basses. We had a full drum kit in a terraced house, and that was available to me from a very early age because my dad was a musician, So they were very, very supportive. So it was, I was very young when I started playing. I started playing guitar probably seriously when I was about 12, but music was around me all the time. But for the story, the epiphany, I was trying to learn guitar, and I was listening to pop music. Okay, I was listening to, I don't know, Terence Trent D'Arby or whatever it might be.
Must be Duran for you.
Things like that, but my dad came to me and he said, look, you're never going to learn to play guitar well listening to that music. He said, listen to this. And he gave me a C90 cassette. And on one side was Van Halen 1, and on the other side was Eat 'Em and Smile by David Lee Roth. And I put that cassette in.
Was that with Steve? Was that Steve Vai on that album?
Yeah, on the first album. And I can't play anything like Steve Vai mine, but
not many people can. Yeah.
Oh, but that I listened to that and I was like, oh my God. And it was literally, what's the Bible story with Saul on the road to Damascus when he sees the light of God? It was that kind of moment where I heard that, and it was just, everything was all over from that point. And it kind of, after that, then I remember buying, watching David Lee Roth videos, and then it was Motley Crue after that, watching the Girls video by Motley Crue, and it changed everything about me, as it does for most people that get into rock music. It changed, I won't say my personality, but it gave me more confidence. It certainly changed how I dressed, how I wore my hair. It was a real moment, but it was that C90 cassette that my dad gave me. Was like, what did Ozzy say the other week about listening to the Beatles? He said it was like going to sleep in black and white and waking up in colour. And I think Ozzy describes hearing the Beatles in that way. That's what it was like for me then, listening to Van Halen and Motley Crue and the bands that came after that then.
Wow, honestly, just to share that, I watched David Roth on that tour at Wembley with Steve Vai, and I've seen a lot of concerts since. It is still my number one concert. It is still my number one concert, and I love it in terms of the way your music and its eclectic way it goes, because for me that concert epitomised that rock can cross all sort of genres, because he did Caribbean rock with steel drums, he abseiled from the ceiling, it was a real showman, but the level of different types of rock, from 60s rock to modern rock, was phenomenal. And when Steve Vai was making his double guitar talk, like Welcome to London and stuff, was absolutely just a phenomenal concert. It's still to this very day, and I've seen some amazing gigs and amazing bands, but that is still, in terms of pure entertainment and everything, still my number one concert. So it is phenomenal.
For me, the only showman that comes close to always is better than David Lee Roth. I would say the only one that tops David Lee Roth is Freddie Mercury for me.
Oh yeah.
But those two, in terms of my on-stage persona,
yes,
Freddie Mercury and David Lee Roth just kind of top 10.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Stealing things from them,
So, right, so we come to the most exciting part of the interview now, and we have to do this because otherwise we'll both be roasted alive. It's called the TT segment, Casey, right. And that's because it's called Trish Time. Okay, so it's Trish Time. So I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Trish, who works incredibly hard on this show, organising all these interviews. So just want to say, Trish, live, thank you ever so much, because you wouldn't let this man off the hook. This is the third time that we've got him, and it's been well worth the wait. So, hit me, Trish. Hit me just with Trish Time questions.
Go ahead, Trish.
Well, come on. I mean, the first question I'm obviously going to talk about is paint.
Right. Okay.
Obviously, I know it's about tattoos, but come on, tell us the story.
Right. Okay. I remember having my first tattoo a long time ago, and somebody said to me they're addictive, and I said no, I'm just gonna have one. I'm just gonna have one on my shoulder here, and that's it. And I can remember saying, I think it looks cool just having one, and then you kind of go, oh no, maybe if and it goes crazy then, and as you can probably see, my arms, my chest, my back, my leg, etc. And I love tattoos, and the idea really came to me from it was twofold really, that certain places you go, so if I go, I've been looking for a new car recently, or a new van actually, for the band, and it's a summer day at the moment. This is after the release of the single, by the way. This is in the last couple of weeks, but it's come from situations like this. And you go to a car showroom, and it could be that I wanted to spend 70-80 grand on a car. I don't, but that could be the case. It's a summer's day, so I'll walk in and I'll have a pair of shorts on. They can see I've got tattoos on my leg. I might have something like this on, and they can see I've got tattoos. And the reception that I get is not the same as if somebody wearing a trousers and a shirt walked in, etc. But Equally, mind, I will say, is that if I've ever been smartly dressed and I've walked into a music shop, people have also kind of ignored me and judged me the opposite way, because they think, oh, this guy can't know anything about guitars, you know, he's wearing whatever he's wearing. So that's where the idea from Paint came from. It was about how people view tattoos. My dad still hates tattoos, and tells me all the time, every time I have a new one. So it came from that kind of the judgment that people have about tattoos.
Yeah, I can relate to that, and I'm sure loads of other people can as well. You know, it definitely, from the lyrics, you can tell it's quite a personal song.
Yeah, it is a personal song, and I think sometimes I worry sometimes about the music. I can only write what I write. Okay, I like I say, it's what comes from within me in terms of lyrics, in terms of music. But sometimes I think that I write stuff that is too personal, and I think that maybe it's difficult for people to relate to. Maybe not with Paint, but with other stuff that I've written. I think, is it too personal? You know, can people not relate to that because it's specifically about me or about someone I know or whatever it might be. I'm hoping that's not
for you, and a therapy for you to be able to get it out.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I can't write about driving down the Sunset Strip in a Chevrolet because that's not me. You know, Brett Michaels of Poison or whoever it is, you know, Paul Stanley from Kiss, they can write about things like that. I can't. And, you know, in a similar way, and I'll give a shout out to one of my favourite bands at the moment, is Massive Wagons. I'm a huge fan of Massive Wagons. I saw them last week again, actually. And you know, Barry Mills from Massive Wagons, the stuff that he writes as well it's down to earth stuff. You know, I'm a working class boy from Swansea. I can't write about, like I say, you know, driving my dad's Chevrolet down the sunset. But yeah, I just need to write about.
Casey, I'm going to stop you there because I don't believe that for 1 second. Because I think you can write driving your Chevrolet down somewhere nicer than the Sunset Boulevard. You should be writing about driving it down the Mumbles, mate. Down the fucking Mumbles, which is just as beautiful and as stunning as a Sunset Boulevard. I think you should be doing that and talking about the Mumbles.
Yeah,
run.
I haven't got the Chevrolet, but I could drive my Mitsubishi L200.
Absolutely, there we go. The Mitsubishi, fantastic. Do it. Doing the Mumbles run.
Yeah, you know, to get back, it is a personal song, and that's all I can do, though. And like I said, I do worry sometimes that I'm writing stuff that's too personal because I'm writing about the people around me, and I worry whether people can relate to it. But I can't do it any other way. I you know, the inspiration for what I write about comes from within.
Don't ever change that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I can do, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you should maintain that, by the way. Absolutely, you should do that. Keep it going. Don't ever worry about that. Sorry, Trish.
That's okay. What's the best advice that you've ever been given as a musician?
Ooh, probably stop listening to Terence Trent D'Arby and never listen to Van Halen.
I mean, I'm sorry, but we've already had that story, and you can't really top that, can you? Really, as advice. Check out David Roth and Steve Vai. Oh, I'm done.
To be honest, it's just to be genuine. You know, I grew up surrounded by musicians. You know, whether it's lyrically like we just spoke about, or whether it's a guitar solo, you know, I can't play like Nuno Bettencourt, right? Who's one of my favourite. But I'm a huge Manic Street Preachers fan, okay, as well.
Yeah.
And James Dean Bradfield, for me as a guitar player, has always been an inspiration. I think he's so underrated because he doesn't kind of, you know, blaze up and down the fretboard or anything like that. But he does things that are so effective and true to himself. So that, yeah, probably that. Be true to yourself and be genuine. Don't try to do, you know, things that are not real to you, you know?
Okay, so I'm going to end with a couple of quick fire questions, which are like fun ones.
Yeah, so, go ahead.
Favourite film?
Ooh, From Dusk Till Dawn with George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino.
Favourite food?
Favorite food? My girlfriend's Italian, so I'm going to say Italian food, definitely.
Favorite type of weather?
Favorite type of weather? Summer, all day long. All day long, sun.
Favorite song?
Favorite song? Oh, that's a difficult one, to be honest. I would probably say a song called "Glutton of Sympathy" by the band Jellyfish.
Okay. And final one, favorite word?
Oh, it's a word I can't say on here, but it's a word that I say all the time, and it begins with C, but I better not say it on here.
What does it begin with and what does it end with?
It starts with C and it ends with T. I'll say rock and roll instead. Say rock and roll.
Rock and roll, baby, rock and roll.
We'll say rock and roll instead. How's that?
Yeah. Okay, Nigel, I'll hand back to you now.
So, I one of the questions I wanted to ask is, I hear a lot of, I think you might well have done this already, but I hear a lot of bands, like we recently, because we review so many albums, that sing in their native tongues. So, have you done a song in Welsh, or mix it up to do a bit of Welsh in your music?
Do you know what? I haven't. I'm learning Welsh now, so my Welsh is okay. Conversational Welsh is not too bad. I wasn't a native Welsh speaker, believe it or not. For people outside of Wales, the kind of centre of Swansea is not prevalent with Welsh speakers, but I'm learning now. I've done about 750 days on the Duolingo app, and do you know what? I would love to. There's what's the song? Catatonia, National Velvet, which is, it's got that chorus: every day I wake up, I thank the Lord I'm Welsh, which you, Nigel, will appreciate. Trish, I'm sure you've met lots of Welsh people, but we are a proud people. The only thing I'd have to learn to do is to rhyme in Welsh. I don't think I know enough of it yet to be able to rhyme the words.
You would need to have. I say to people about the South Wales, because if you say, like, we're from Neath, and if we meet somebody from like Newport, and they go like, oh, where are you from? And oh, I'm from Newport. Ah, English, is it? And it goes all the way down there. And then that's not from South Wales or that valley. We got to somewhere like Buthwell, Brecon Beacon, and we tell people where we're from, and they go, oh, English, is it? and that transmutes itself right across Wales. So very proud and piss-taking, to say the least.
I'm learning. Like I say, I wasn't brought up learning Welsh, but I am learning. And maybe I'd love to write a song in Welsh if I can come up with the rhymes. Yeah.
So I always, when I do an interview, I always like to say, before I kind of met them, what performer you remind me of, or the band that remind me of. And when I was listening to your music, I said, like, you look a bit like Biffy Clyro, but for me, you would, because I listened to it, would be the Welsh version of Daughtry. In terms of,
I'm all right with that.
Well, I think you've got the voice for it, and what I like about Daughtry is, his latest album is a bit heavier, but also, he has what I call pop sense in his melodies without being pop, and I just, when I was kind of listening to your music, I went, like, he's a bit lighter than Daughtry, but there's similarities there from that perspective. Now, we all know Daughtry's humble beginnings, which was on American Pop Idol. Now, if you put your YouTube out there and people from Britain's Got Talent say, come and perform for us, would you do that? I mean, because you've got that look, haven't you?
Would I sell my soul? Do you know what? I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't. I question the validity of the programs. I don't know about in the US, but certainly in the UK, I'm aware of some people that have had the phone call. Would you be willing to come and do this? And then they're made out to be as if there's somebody coming in off the street.
Oh, yeah.
And I also know of some incredible singers that have gone and taken part and haven't even got to the TV kind of stages of it. So from that perspective, I question the validity of programs like that. However, if somebody said to me, do you want to put one of your songs in front of 30 million people on a Saturday night, then yeah, of course I will. You know, it's, I'm sure that you'll get lots of other rock musicians on here that'll go, no, I'd never do it. But I'm going to be straight. Yeah,
I think ultimately it's not about as long as you like don't go on there and sing a Terence D'Arby song, you can be true to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And therefore get out your music to that sort of audience and be yourself. Then I see absolutely no harm in getting that exposure.
No, the hardest thing. The hardest thing is not writing the music. It's I've been lucky enough with everything I've released that the reception has always been really positive in terms of reviews, whether it's live or the recorded stuff, and that's probably the case. There are loads and loads of good bands in the UK writing good stuff at the moment. Loads of great rock bands. It's getting it out there. It's getting the message out there that is so difficult because mainstream radio is not playing, a lot of rock music. You've got. Sorry, I know I'm talking loads, but there's a band from South Wales, Scarlet Rebels.
Scarlet Rebels. Yeah. We love Scarlet Rebels. Yeah.
And top 5 album, right? Top 5 album, not in the rock chart, in the mainstream chart, and still not being played on mainstream radio, on Radio 1 or whatever it might be. Massive Wagons, another one I talk about there. Those Damn Crows, they a little bit more now maybe, but again, top 10 album, Skindred, top 10 album, and your rock music's just not being played on the mainstream, So I think the hardest thing nowadays is getting it out there, So yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd do it.
Yeah, Skindred are literally only just starting to be played on like Kerrang radio.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky we've got Kerrang and Planet Rock. But
so it's a long time to get to that point.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think there are some fantastic bands out there at the moment doing music, and they're just not getting heard, Yeah. And the Rebels being they're not friends of mine. I know them to say hello to, etc. But fantastic last album, charted top 10, and again, mainstream that people are not aware of them.
No, it got into our Hall of Fame. We loved them. Okay.
Yeah.
So Get Out and Push album. What's your favourite track?
Yeah.
I've got 2. So I wanted to know see if we are connecting here. We've connected with David Roth. Let's see if we can connect.
Right. Okay. There'll probably be 2 there, and they're both quite personal songs. So the first one is Brooklyn in the Rain because it's as well as being a kind of hard rock fan, I'm also a bit of a power pop fan, and that was me trying to emulate the kind of power pop bands. And it was written about, I spent a lot of time in New York. We go at least once a year. My partner, my girlfriend, wants to live out there, and she's always talking about, come on, let's go. And we always go to Brooklyn. We spend time in Brooklyn, and I wrote that about her desire to live in New York. And I was lucky enough that I did a show in New York earlier in the year. I was lucky enough to do an acoustic show in New York, which was a bit of a bucket list kind of tick. The other one then would probably be Disgracefully Yours, because it's a song people say to me all the time, I'm not in my 20s anymore, and people say to me, oh my God, when are you going to, cover the tattoos up? When are you going to cut your hair? When are you going to dress like everybody else does?
No.
And I'm like, never. That's never going to happen, And so there's lines in there like, I'll dress like Motley on the Sunset Strip, and I'll dye my hair while you say get a grip. So that was kind of about... those are the 2, I think, and that's probably because they're quite personal.
Well, do you know what? That is incredible. That is incredible, because those are the 2 songs that are not on my cool playlist. Blood and Bruises and Lately Sarah Can't See were my 2 faves. So absolutely bangers.
I went Superman's Dead.
Oh well.
That
demonstrates what a real strong album that is, and I have no doubt that if we were reviewing your album, I think you would be I think you would be pushing, if not definitely getting into our Hall of Fame. It's that higher quality. So I'm excited to maybe listen to your new album and get that in front of me. So
get it over to you right away.
So what's your biggest gig? What's the best gig you've been? You seem to have done a lot of support acts and that sort of stuff, and you've mentioned Brooklyn and Tick After Tick List. But what's been your favourite gig so far then, and where was that?
I think probably it depends over the years. We've done so many over the years, but if you're talking about just the Casey stuff now, with the Casey Maunder band, it was probably working with Mike Tramp from White Lion, to be honest, because they were a band that I loved, and also he turned up and he was, to me, Mike Tramp is the epitome of a rock star. He I watched him in Birmingham NEC when I was younger, and he turned up and was so down to earth, was so humble, had so much time for us. You often find that kind of when you play with some of the the bigger bands, that they don't actually watch the support act, and that's their prerogative. They've got things to do, etc. I'm not going to go at anyone, but Mike Tramp for me was probably my favourite artist that I've managed to play with, and he was also the most down to earth, the most humble guy. I had so much time for myself and the band, and like I say, it was one of those surreal moments where I'd seen this guy play in a 50,000 seat stadium, and all of a sudden I'm having a sound check with him, and he's telling me, "Oh, I really like that song, man," and you're just like, oh, Mike Tramp likes one of my songs, So yeah, but probably that one with the Casey Maunder stuff. It was probably playing with Mike Tramp. It was very surreal.
What's your ambition, Casey? Where do you hope to see yourself in the next 5 years?
Yeah, to be honest, it's not really about where I see myself. I just want to get the music out to as many people as possible. I've got no kind of, we've got a couple of biggest gigs next year. We're playing Hard Rock Hell next year. We're doing something called the In It Together Festival, which is in South Wales, and that's another kind of big festival. But it's more about kind of, I just want to reach as many people as possible, and I want to, more and more people that listen to the music. I'm not particularly financially driven, if I'm honest. It's not. It's certainly not about the money or anything like that. I just want people to hear the songs, and if I can, I don't know. I suppose it would be to have 1 million streams. But I guarantee you, if I got 1 million streams, I would be saying, "Oh, if I could just get 5 million streams."
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Genuinely, it's just about getting the music to as many people.
Are you financially? Does the music financially support you then, or do you have another job? Or
No. The music doesn't at the moment. The streaming services are kind of a double-edged sword in that I spoke earlier about how the new single is streaming 5 times as much in America, Australia and Canada as it is in the UK. Now, without the streaming services, that just wouldn't be the case. If we were still selling CDs or vinyl, that wouldn't be the case. The downside of the streaming services is that you're just not making an awful lot of money from it,
You're building up your fan base, but hopefully that fan base will eventually buy merchandise and come and watch you in concert.
But the streaming services just don't offer enough financial reward, really. But as I say, if I was selling CDs, there certainly wouldn't be anyone in Dallas listening to my songs.
Well, you never know. Casey, it has been. I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because you're from my hometown, but we've had a lot of humble people on this show, but I don't think that there is anybody's been as humble as you are. I genuinely say that. I genuinely mean that. So it's been an absolute pleasure. First of all, it was a pleasure listening to your music. It was a pleasure talking to you. It's a pleasure to hear about your journey so far, and we will watch with anticipation and pleasure as to see where that journey ends up. We really look forward to reviewing your new album when it comes out. What sort of timeline? Tell our audience, what sort of timeline are we looking at your new album? Is it going to be this year or early next year?
I'm hoping that it will be December.
Right.
If not, it will definitely be January. But I work with a distribution company, and sometimes it's not always up to me when the record comes out. But I'm hoping that for this side of New Year. If not, it will definitely be the first month of 2026.
Fantastic. Casey Maunder, thank you so much from everybody on Musical People and Journeys, for your time. And we do wish you all the best, very best. And get that word out there, get your stuff out there. Thank you very much. Everybody out there, Google Chris Maunder, check out his music, check him out on Amazon, Spotify, wherever it is, and do give him your support. I think you will not be disappointed. He is amazing. Thank you ever so much. God bless.
Thanks very much, guys.
And keep on rocking. And, hey, like and subscribe if you like what you've seen and heard. Thank you ever so much. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye-bye.